Hello, hello, and welcome to Pop the Kettle On. My name is Andrew Yo from the Spiritual Co-op, and we've been doing a series on getting to know you and getting to know our tribe members. And today we've got Danae Cappeletto with us, my beautiful friend from another life almost. But I'm so glad to be still in connection with this beautiful conscious creator here. So welcome, Danae.
Thank you for having me, Andrew.
So, Danae, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you've come from and how you started?
Yeah. So as you know now, I work, primarily as a birth doula. But what feeds a lot of that is a yoga practice. So I work with, anyone really with yoga practice, but mostly my passion is with women, and working with women in pregnancy then to help them evolve into their birth experience and motherhood. But as you know, that hasn't always been what I've done. This is quite an unusual gateway into the work that I'm in now. And always also quite a surprise for people that I used to own a restaurant and nightclub in Manhattan in New York with my brother. Yeah, so we did that for, almost, 7 years. And, that was amazing. And I definitely had, the high life. We did birthday parties for Beyonce and for Alicia Keys, for Oprah. I lobbied for the liquor license against David Bowie and Sting. It was definitely the life that I had. And in 2010, just to cut the story short, I went to Haiti post the earthquake, straight after the earthquake, about 2 or 3 weeks after the earthquake, with Wyclef. Just to see the damage that had been done and to see if, I could help in any way. Because I always had sort of, I guess, a yearning of wanting to help people. And often that would manifest into, helping people that would drain me rather than actually having...
needy people.
Needy people rather than, I'd always find people who were the most damaged and the most traumatized and try and help them, which of course is a lovely thing to do, but often that energetic exchange isn't there. And so it's not healthy. And yeah, when I got there, I saw a lot of stuff that was, quite difficult to see, but also a lot of stuff that was quite incredibly beautiful and that woke something that was within me that I knew always was there. I think when I had quiet moments in my life, I know that when I traveled to Haiti for a little while before I went to New York, I would often, when I sat alone, have moments when I would look at my hands and I knew that I would do something in my life quite powerful with my hands. I know it's an unusual thing to say, but I knew that I had something to give energetically, just by being present and having touch. I knew that I just always had this feeling in my life that was something that I was quite capable of. And I would usually have that sensation when I was alone by myself in quietness, that I would have these visions of being with someone and having impact with them with my hands. Anyway, when I went to Haiti, I had that experience, and which I hadn't felt for quite a long time. And it was while being with a woman while she was birthing in the midst of an earthquake environment. It was 2 weeks after the whole place had been brought to the ground. It's a third world country where everything had been brought to the ground. There were tent cities with 40,000 people in them. you know, sirens going off everywhere, United Nations everywhere. And these women, of course, were trying to birth. And we pitched a tent and had these women birth in these environments that were completely crazy, and yet their births were so sacred and so ritualistic if they had other women in the communities that were around them that were able to bring that in for them. And they just birthed their babies. And I'd never had an experience with birth before, of course. You know, I was like in a nightclub in New York. I had friends that had birthed, I had babies, you know, it just wasn't even in my radar. I was in like my late 20s. And I just, and I had this, like, it's just blew my mind. But, you know, the most beautiful thing was I was able to sit with some of these women who spoke Creole, so, you know, we didn't share the language. And they just held their arm. And I was like, and, you know, like when you get that rush, like, you know, I've done this, something in me had done this before.
Yeah.
I really believe that that I've done this in a past life. I dream about birth. I dream about seeing the clients that I pick up. I see their births. Often before they call me, I'll feel contractions in my stomach or get hot flushes or rushes, and I'll just know that the birth is coming.
So you're quite empathic that way. You actually feel what's going on.
I feel that I dream them. You know, I often see their babies as toddlers in my dreams. And I got that, you know, that feeling where you get, I felt a rush and very heightened and but also extremely present, like I'd never been present before in my life. And I walked away from that experience thinking, what was that? You know, who was I when I was there? And of course, you know, I went back to my life in New York, and I had this experience of who I was in a completely different environment that felt so real. And then I came back to the life that I had in New York, and it was just bullshit.
Yeah.
It really changed me. And, you know, people told me that I was crazy, you know, that there were articles flying around like, is this the new queen of nightlife in New York and all this stuff. And I was like, this is just crap. And I wanted to come home. I wanted to have my own family. You know, the world financial, you know, like crisis hit, you know, and you know, things started to get very difficult for us there in New York as well. And I was just like, this can't go on forever. Like, this high life can't go on forever. This is going to get hard. And anyway, I came home, and I unfortunately didn't follow what I knew was within me when I came home. I think I was so caught up in ego. You know, I'd lived this life. I was really struggling to find connection when I got home with the friends that I had left behind. I had this amazing experience, you know, two amazing experiences, not only with myself, but also the life that I was living in New York. And I felt like when I walked into a room, if I told people about that I was boasting or bragging. And I found it so hard to connect with people then. And I was also coming down off my life that I'd had in New York. You know, there was a lot of alcohol, a lot of crap involved there. And I just felt like I really needed to withdraw from the whole thing on so many different levels. And I found that excruciating. And I tried to crawl back into it. You know, I tried going back into hospitality here and getting back into that life here. And I just kept smashing my head up against brick walls and not listening to what the universe is trying to tell me. And eventually I broke my foot in like 4 different places, smashed my foot apart going out, you know, one night in my high heels and my New York outfit. And I got home and I was like, fuck, I'm finally getting the message this time.
I remember this. This was in the Goldsboro, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That you were walking around in crutches.
Yeah, with this boot on. And I was like, and it really kind of took that. And, you know, that was just the worst nightmare for me because I've been through so much with my body. You know, I've broken my back and my pelvis in 6 places in my, you know, in my early, you know, when I was 19. And I didn't want to heal from a broken bone again. That was so much. And I could not believe that I'd smashed my foot to pieces like that. And I really...
For those who don't don't know Danae is also an elite athlete. You know, she does, it's kickboxing that you do?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you know, she competitive and nothing ever stops her, you know. So this is like a really big wake up for you, isn't it?
Massive for me, you know, like I just could not. When you're so reliant on your body and being powerful and strong, I really enjoyed how powerful and strong I always was. You know, I was fighting. I was, I really wanted to be in the Australian Ballet School when I was younger. You know, I was doing everything to work my way towards that. I was so close to that. You know, and and I came up against my body every time. It was like my body shut me down from paths leading me. I know, leading me to try to get to this. But, you know, eventually my body had to shut me down again. And I really, when that happened and I sat on the couch, I was like, okay, I'm listening. Fine. What am I supposed to do? And I really just stopped and paused and really listened to my body and my heart. And I did try swaying up. Of course, I went back to university and started studying maths, thinking I wanted to get into sciences and medicine. Because I thought that would make my mum really happy because she's very academic. I was still trying to listen to what I thought other people wanted from me, and try to impress people. There's this ego in me. I wanted to impress everyone. And what could I do with my intelligence and with my body that would impress everyone? And eventually that was exhausting. And I had this broken foot and I was like, what do I want to do? I want to do yoga. And everyone was horrified. I just want to be a yoga teacher.
And that was around the same.
I pulled out of my maths and to be a yoga teacher.
And that was the same time you were falling pregnant as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'd met Bob. With that broken foot came, then I went to uni to do this maths degree, and I ran out of money because I was, paying a mortgage in an apartment and massive struggle. And, I ran out of money. So I got, this was extraordinarily humbling for me. I got a waitress job in a restaurant in Balmain. I'd never been in Balmain before. After running my own restaurant, my Razzle Dazzle in New York, I was now a waitress in a little cafe in Balmain, and it was the best thing for me because it broke down all my ego and all my bullshit, and I was back serving tables, and I just loved it. And that's where I met Rob. He just kept coming in the door there. And he's the love of my life.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you have two beautiful children.
Me to follow, and he was the one that encouraged me to follow my heart. He said, go do your yoga. I don't care if you don't do your maths. Go do the yoga. That's what's going to make you happy.
Yeah.
So I did. And I then fell pregnant. So I ended up doing my yoga teacher training while I was pregnant with our first son, Dane. And then, the yoga woke me up. And it gave me the ability to clear out everything that was going on in my head so that I could find who I was. It makes me emotional.
I'm feeling very emotional for you because I've seen your evolution. I mean, for those who don't know as well, Danae and I were neighbors for a long time. So, both of us had lived this crazy lifestyle of nightlife, and somehow the Goldsboro, where we lived in the middle of Darling Harbour, really grounded us and brought us to our center to understand who we were and what we were really striving to be. Yeah. And as much as it was in the middle of everything, but it also brought us to the middle of whom we are and understanding of whom we are. So I remember when Danae had her first boy, Dane, and he appeared, and he was just this most beautiful he was so tiny. little wrinkly little boy, and now he's just big buff head, isn't he?
Yeah, just like
But
Rob.
just like Rob. But this kind of leads me to this thing. Do you think that, I know that all these things have led to your spiritual awakening and your
Mhm.
spiritual path, but do you think being a mother has really solidified that for you? That,
Yeah,
you having, a person birth
yeah.
through you.
Hmm. I honestly believe that women find their power in that experience. This is what we are biologically. This is who we are. Human beings are so intelligent, and we're capable of so many extraordinary things that we often forget that really we're an animal.
Yes.
And that animal is designed to live and reproduce so that the species can continue. And we forget that. Um, and and that's actually where your purpose is.
Yeah.
And then when we say that, we say like like a feminist movement comes out and says, well, we're so much more than being mothers and being birth and all this other stuff, which of course we are. But I feel in my heart that fundamentally, when women follow that purpose and really welcome the great mother that lives within them, that there's great fulfillment and purpose in that. And everything else is just a sprinkle on the top of that cake, if we can
Yeah.
also then fulfill what your passion and your purpose and all that sort of stuff is. But fundamentally, there's something there. Yeah.
And one of the most amazing things about you, Danae, is that as much as you are a feminist and you're a woman, you actually embrace both sides
Mm.
of that, the sexuality, both sides of that. You have that masculinity and that strength just as much as you have that softness and tenderness and nurturing side of you. And I think that as we're moving spiritually, we're realizing that that is more and more important,
Well, we
because
do both, don't we?
we
All
are
do
we
both. But then when who is the true nature of who you are when that evolves? I think that's when that's where spirituality lies. It's being authentic to who you are.
Yes.
And because the very nature of being a human being itself is spiritual, and whatever you mean that word, however you relate to that word, I feel like being spiritual is by tapping into something that's a greater power than what you thought you had. And that's what I offer, or I like to be able to offer for women, is to be able to tap into something that perhaps they knew was always there, or perhaps they didn't, that's greater than their daily life. And that's what I feel like I've been able to, that's the life that I live every day. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to offer for other people, because if you can, and the way that, I guess going back to where we were in terms of the path of yoga, is that I feel like that gives me an enormous amount of clarity. When I have that clarity, I can offer what I feel is my gift to people in a humble environment, so that your ego and your power doesn't take away from their experience of gaining their power. And I feel like when you bring yoga into that equation, it takes away all the bullshit. It takes away the ego, it takes away your perception of things, and it enables you to walk in and see things how they really are, so that you can walk in as I guess, as something that is the power that offers power.
Yeah.
It's the gateway to power. I like to think of myself as that gateway, as the person that can lay the path so that others can walk down that road and take their power. And for women, I feel like if they want that power from their birth, because not all women want that from their birth, and that's okay too. But for the women that do, that's the path that I want to lay out for them, and just really and protect that path fiercely. And I feel like that's where that male side of me comes in, that strength side, is because often that comes with a lot, like it does need a bit of aggression, and it does need that part. And so I want to make sure that I embrace both sides of my personality so that I can authentically bring that to women, because sometimes it takes a bit of
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny, a couple of days ago, you know, when I was sitting down thinking about this interview, I thought of you, and you are the epitome of the strength card in the tarot. You
Mm,
know, it's this gentle woman that can stand beside a lion, open its mouth, you know, put your head in there
mm,
and fully trust in your strength and ability to
mm,
help others and be that pillar of strength for
mm,
people as well. And, you know, this is why I admire you so much as a person, because there is a tenacity in you, and there is this unwavering strength and fearlessness that
mm,
is what you want, you
mm,
know, for someone who's helping you
mm,
as a doula, you
mm.
know. And so this other question that come up in my mind is, you know, explain to people what being a doula is about, and how is that different from being a midwife or being an obstetrician? How
Yeah.
this, because a lot of people and a lot of women don't actually understand what you actually do,
Yeah.
how you can support them.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I feel like in the culture that we have around the way that we approach birth is we see that support has to come from clinical care.
Hmm.
And we see what, you know, who are the people, like when, if I go into those North Shore mums Facebook pages, which I, it's so hard for me often, because when women talk about birth in our culture, in our community, they talk about needing obstetricians that are trained surgeons,
Hmm.
and midwives that, you know, specialise in clinical care. So if you don't have that medical background, how could you possibly help me with my birth? And, you know, there is so much more to birth. And actually, it's not a medical emergency. It's something that we are physiologically designed to do, and that if we're supported well, and yes, often that does come with the need of clinical care, but, you know, how my role fits into that is I appreciate that there are so many different levels to birth that are not just
Mm.
medical, that the journey is, you know, physiological, neurological, immunological, hormonal, metabolic event in the body,
Mm.
that requires so much more to help the body open, and that a huge part of that journey is emotional. It's working with your mind, and that is not what comes from clinical care.
Mm.
So if, you know, your body's going to finish this for you, you know, 97% of the time, you know, true medical emergency happens in birth at 2 to 3%, right? True medical emergency.
Hmm. So
Open. How does someone feel comfortable getting to a point where they will allow their body to open? Because it's not just about the process of, you know, the baby coming out. It's a process of the mother allowing her body to open as well.
yeah.
And, you know, the way that you get trust with someone to support someone is, you know, I do their birth education from very early on. So I like for women to engage me at sort of, you know, 15, 16 weeks, ideally.
Wow, so that's right, almost right in the beginning, the first
Yeah.
time after the first trimester.
Yeah, usually most of the time, you know, I get women engaged around sort of 20 weeks, because it's like shit gets real.
Hmm.
You know, they're like, whoa, okay, I'm
They're
really,
starting to show, and
baby's gonna come out.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but, you know, a lot of the time when, you know, I get women that come to my pregnancy yoga classes at sort of 15 weeks, because they're starting to feel it in their body, and then get a sense of who I am, and then say, oh, okay, I would really love for you to be at my birth. And so I've had that relationship with them from around 15, 16 weeks, where I do all their birth education with them. I do however many yoga practices a week with them. I understand, you know, what is honey for their mind. So I understand through, you know, specialized visualization, through understanding different types of specialized meditation techniques, breathing techniques, working with their body, understanding how their body moves and how they relate to their body,
Mm.
understanding whether they work better with their breath, with numbers, with touch, with acupressure, with different scents and oils, working with different color visualizations, really understanding how
Mm.
that woman ticks, understanding what brings emotion out of her body, where that emotion comes from. Is there any trauma, whether that's sexual trauma or physical trauma that is going to impact her in birth? And then, as that journey goes on, it's kind of sacred women's work, right?
It is, yes.
When you really get to know someone on that kind of a level, understanding that the birth is the biggest thing that a woman will ever do in her life, that is the biggest event in her body and in her emotion, in her mind, that she will ever experience. That's a fact. And so, the process of giving life is the biggest event that the human body can do, male or female. And so, you can't just rock up to your birth without preparation. If you're not someone who's already quite a calm, relaxed person, say, I'm going to have a calm birth today. It just doesn't work like that. You labour how you live. And, you have to train your brain just like any other muscle that you would call upon to support peak performance. And that takes time, and that's how I work with women, so that they, then when we have the time with their partner, if they have a partner and a husband with them, then we work on how they relate to each other. How does this woman cope with pain? What is her relationship with pain? What is pain in labour? I think there's, a few how my approach is a little bit different to some of the other courses and things out there. Is, some courses say don't use the word pain. You've got to take yourself away from that idea of using the word pain. And I think that's ridiculous too, because, the brain needs to feel pain to shoot out more oxytocin and endorphin. That's part of the physiological.
That's exactly right. Correct.
So pain in your brain is what releases endorphin, that releases prolactin, and that helps bring your milk in, and maternal instinct hormone. That's so exactly you can't, one cannot remove the pain of labour without disturbing the chain of physiological events. And so,
like, you can't sugarcoat it, can you? Because
no,
it is what it is.
It's what it is. And often women then come undone because they've been told they can have these, these silent births,
and this baby is just going to shoot out.
And they're going to breathe their babies out. And I don't, it's the human experience. I mean, women can, breathe. I've seen women, breathe their babies out, and often second-time mums, but they've gone through a massive event first. That's the part at the end that we see these beautiful, magical videos of women, second-time mums that can help breathe their babies down. But that's, for first-time mums, so unrealistic. It's just not fair. And so, I guess what my role is then is, you become their person. So if you go and see, we've got so many studies around, and Cochrane reviews around the model of continuity of care, and how impactful that model of continuity of care is on birth outcomes with clinical care, with group practice midwives, or with, a home birth midwife and all that sort of thing. And where I look at a different type of what I feel like is true continuity of care is when I am with a woman through that entire experience, and I'm not taking the bond that she has away with her partner. It's that you become the person that they call when they've got a twinge in their back, or a twinge in their belly, or they have weird dreams, or, they have a fear that comes up, or they've seen something in a meditation that they've done, for those that engage in their bodies and their minds that way. Or they have had a weird day where they've had like weird contractions and things. We're the ones that they call. We're the ones that talk them emotionally through all those moments. We've done all their really thorough birth education that is not just about birth education within the hospital system, but it's understanding what the birth is as a whole. And, we're the first person I'm the first person they call when they think they're going into labour. And the weeks leading up to, where often women have, everything gets heightened and comes to a point, I feel like around 36, 37 weeks, and often I'll get a phone call of a woman completely undone. Which is a really good sign. Really emotional, body's really hurting, all that kind of stuff. And
that's exactly right.
That's the bond that you have with a woman, where then when you go into her birth, I'm the one that then goes, I'm the first person at her birth. Obviously her partner is there, but we have so much expectation on men, like even in the hospital prenatal or birth education sessions, they say to women, I know because we did one, which was fascinating to me after all the birth that I'd seen in Haiti. And then, I went there and they were pulling out epidural needles and C-sections and saying, well, 6 women in this room are going to have a C-section. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, is this what we're doing? Is this how we give birth here? I was blown away.
I was actually quite shocked by that as well, because I was a birthing partner for a friend of mine who had a husband, but because I've been doing the pregnancy massage and all of that, she's like, you need to see a birth. And so I went for all the classes and I thought, wow, this is so robotic and
dehumanized.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. It's not, and look, it's the system that we birth in, and thank goodness that it's there for that true medical emergency, and how beautiful it is for women to have the option, because I'm all about options for women for birth. I don't care if you want to birth with all the medical interventions that you want, or you want to birth under a fucking tree out in the middle of a park. What I want is for women to get their power in their birth. And what I had to see was a big eye-opener in terms of the culture in which we feed women through, where women feel like they don't actually have that option. Where is the option in my birth? And what if I want a different birth to what I'm being presented with in this hospital environment? Right. I want to feel safe, because I feel safe being in an environment where I know that there's an emergency care if I need it. But then when I get there, I get put through a hospital policy system that I don't know that I can say no to some of those choices and options. And just like that, the birth is taken away from them. They no longer have the power of their birth. They're handed over as soon as they walk through those hospital doors. Anyway, so I feel like the true continuity of care comes when you really are with women from the beginning. And that when you really get to know someone like that, you could walk in the door and have your group practice midwife there or not. It could be someone else that's on shift. And often, most of the time, you can't, it's so hard to get into those continuity of care models with those incredible midwives. And look, all midwives are incredible. It's not to say that it's someone that doesn't work in group practice midwifery isn't amazing. It's, when women walk in the door, I think the expectation is, because we do this every day, of course, we'll look after you. Well, you don't know that woman. You actually have no idea who she is, and she doesn't know.
That's exactly right.
So how could you possibly be the person that knows how their mind ticks to get them through those moments of crisis of confidence, which is what birth does to women. You can't sugarcoat it. It's what it's designed to do. It's your rite of passage. When you look at any sort of culture where they have ritual around rite of passage, often someone is taken away from the community where they had an experience. Often it involves pain, like a branding of some sort, or an experience of taking their body beyond its limits and asking them to do something beyond what they thought that their capability was, so that when they come back into the community, they're seen as someone different. You're seen as a man, or as, after birth, as a mother, as a woman. And we forget about that rite of passage for women, and where they find their power by, reaching a level beyond what they ever thought that they were capable of. It's really my favourite thing about birth is transition labour, to be honest, is, walking a woman to her greatest battle and handing her a fucking sword.
I love that analogy.
Yeah. And, it's interesting you say that about the lion, because often I'll say to women, like, just grab that lion and roar right back. That next contraction that comes, or the next surge or wave, whatever you want to call it, grab onto the lion and roar back at them. And, you just see women like, and I just like, yes, now you're awake, and now you can bring your baby down. Now, do you feel how powerful you are now? And, often women, often completely breaks you before it makes you.
Yeah.
You have to get undone before you can get put back together again as this powerful person. And I think that's where because I'm not focused on clinical care, because I'm not focused on making sure that the baby's heart rate is okay, which of course is important to me, but that's not my role. That's where the midwives, they take care of all that stuff. They make sure that you are clinically safe, right? But the underneath the real work that's done with the emotion, with the spirit, with opening her, releasing all the emotion that's stored in her body, with releasing it through sound, we're letting her body open, letting her mind and her heart open. That comes with working with the doula. And that's where I see women have these massive, empowering, huge birth experiences where, you know, I just don't, you can't expect your husband to be the sole person with having never been in a birth environment before, never see you behave that way before, where you can play on his emotions to negotiate out of things, because of course women do that. I did that. You know, I was trying to manipulate my way out of my first birth too. You know, that's what we do.
Yeah.
And, you know, when there's poor men are having, you know, so poor men, these beautiful husbands or fathers or, you know, partners in whatever capacity, sometimes there are other women, are also having a massive emotional experience as well, because they're watching you go through this, you know, a huge amount of pain, a huge marathon feat and effort. And often people want to save, you know, the support person wants to save you from the labour then, right? So they want to save you from the pain. Like, what can we do? What can we give her? Quick, help her, you know, instead of protecting that space so she can labour and birth well, so that she can find her power. And, you know, how can you do that if you don't have the experience in birth? You know, I'm so comfortable in birth. I feel like I'm the most present and awake and my true authentic self when I'm around a woman that's birthing. And, you know, I'm okay with someone biting me or pulling my hair or telling me to get fucked.
Because that's real, isn't it?
It's very real. And for me, that's women getting everything out of their body that they've wanted to tell people to get fucked for for the last decade. It's like, great, finally.
And I think that's the difference between a doula and a midwife, isn't that? That
Yeah.
you're actually there for that 20 hours or however long that person is in birth or in labor, and you're there supporting throughout the entire process, and also bringing this, you're holding space, which is such, you know, this is in spirituality, such a big thing, to be able to hold space for the person to have this amazing experience and allow them and support them through this experience.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings me to my next question, you know, how do you bring this spirituality into your everyday life? Because that's what the Spiritual Co-op is about, you know. We want to bridge spirituality and everyday life. How do you do this in your everyday life?
Yeah, that's interesting, because the more birth work that I do, the more present I feel. But I get up and do a yoga practice every morning. So whether that's teaching a class or doing it alone, I do yoga practice every morning. And that doesn't always have to involve, you know, a physical practice. You know, for the real essence of yoga is actually, you know, you do the asana to settle your body so that you can sit down to work with your breath and your mind. You know, that's, so whether I do a physical practice or, you know,
or Raja Yoga, which is,
bring clarity. So that when I go about my day, I feel like I'm the most authentic version of myself. And that authentic version of myself is, I feel like a great mother lives in me. And that mothers are the mothers. And
you're the chief mama. I love that.
But I also, you know, I work really hard on that being from a place of, like, from a humble place as well. I don't want for anyone to, it's not about me being a better mother than anyone in that way. It's more that I want to nurture women. You know, I want women that are around me, if I have any interaction with any human being, that I feel like I've had an energetic exchange with them that has been nourishing. And I feel like when I do that, I'm nourished. And if I speak to another woman in the park, you know, just if I'm there with my kids or whatever, and often, you know, I think it's just who I am. when I start talking to women, women share their birth stories with me. And it just seems to come up a lot.
Yeah.
And often, sometimes debriefing very quickly with a woman with a birth, just in the partner's there with the kids, is beautiful for them. Women want to share their birth stories. And so I feel like, yeah, how do I bring it into my daily life? If I'm the most authentic version of myself every day, then I feel like I'm living as a spiritual being, because that's, you know, it's just the very nature of who I am.
That's so beautiful. Now, you know, Danae is so infectious that even her son, little Dane, wants to go into battle with her and help people birth.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, because I think that is just the sweetest little thing.
It's actually, it's beautiful. It's quite extraordinary too. I think, you know, he's a little 5-year-old boy that knows everything about birth. He knows about, you know, how babies are created. He knows where they live and where they grow and how they become what they are, and the world that they live in before they're birthed. He understands that it's not just the baby, but also the mother that spark a labour.
Mm.
He sees, you know, because the yoga studios are at the top of our house, he would often see, you know, all my pregnancy yoga classes where women would come, and he'd put his hands on women's bellies. And there was one client that I had that I particularly loved. I mean, I love them all, but one client that I had, Beck, who, you know, started my yoga when she was sort of 15 weeks. And by the time it came to her almost being born, she walked in the door one day and Dane put his hands on her belly and said, your little girl's name's Maddie. And her little jaw dropped. And that was the name that they'd given to their, you know, no one knew the sex, no one knew the name, and that was the name that they had chosen for their baby girl. And he's like, she's really happy in there. So there's something about, not to get too woo-woo on you.
Oh, that's making me really, really emotional.
Yeah, something about Dane, and he will look at all the videos in my phone when I get home from a birth. He'll wake up if it's in the middle of the night and say, oh, you're home. How'd it go? When someone calls and we say that, you know, I'm going to help a mum give birth, he says, you know, I'll come with you this time and we'll help her, we'll turn on all the lights and help her get in the dark, and I'll keep her cool and calm so that she can open and have a baby. Can I please come? Can you please let me come? Like, he'll, you know, and it's just gobsmacking to me. You know, whether it's, and that's why, this is why, like, I believe, right, that, you know, I've done this in another life. Again, yeah. Not getting too woo-woo, and I feel like I pass that to him. That it exists in him as well somewhere, whether he chooses to follow that path or not, that something lives with birth in him.
It's an innate ancestral wisdom that comes with you, and you know, this is your legacy. This is your vision and mission that you're putting out to the world, isn't it? And so it's so amazing that you can really tap into someone as young as Dane and share your passion with him, and you know, and it allows his empathy as well as a child to grow and grow as a person as well.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And you know, like, I think it as well, it just goes to show the culture that we have around birth, where it's, you know, we tuck it away in hospitals, and you know, and then, you know, women that have these horrific traumatic birth stories that come home and share that with their friends and tell their daughters how difficult birth is, and it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like everything terrible about birth that, you know, comes into fear into your body, and everything that we see on television about what birth is, and then that is passed on generationally, you know. And instead of really saying children deal really well with birth. You know, when you're in a home birth environment and these kids, you know, that you see standing around the tub, and, you know, I've got these incredible pictures of these little girls bringing water into the shower for their mums while they're labouring and making like crazy sounds. And the kids aren't like, they're not They're not worried. They're not scared.
Mm,
No, you would think that your child, if you're kind of going, "Roar," and making sounds like that, that you terrify your children, but they know. We don't give them enough credit. They understand, and when they see birth, they they're blown away. And that then creates a culture in your family around what birth is. That it's a family event, it's a physiological event, it's the process of life, it's where you came from. This is what
mm.
your mother did to bring you into the world. And they understand. It's fascinating. I think
And
we don't give them that
it's
credit.
and it's so important that we talk about it and humanize it, because
Yeah,
I know my partner Kane, he was forced to sit there and watch his stepmom's home birth. So he and his sister sat down there at the edge of the bed
yeah,
watching it, and they were so horrified because they weren't prepared for it.
yeah. You
Because
have to prepare
birth,
kids for it. And you have to let them walk away. You have to let them walk in and out of the room as they choose. And that you also have to appreciate that for some of them that perhaps aren't ready, that you have support for them too in the room and in that environment where they can walk away and play and eat and do whatever they want in another room, so that the event itself is pleasant for them as well, so that doesn't become a self-fulfilling prophecy in the family history. Because for some kids, yeah, you're absolutely right. And for some mums too, they don't want their banging on the edge of the bath. They're trying to have their babies. So, I'm not saying that it's like, there's ways and measures to facilitate how that family environment works when kids are involved in birth, for vast, and to make sure that birth is supported really well, so that they're not forced to watch a woman be tied down onto a bed to have a baby.
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing with us your passion, your mission to the world.
Pleasure.
Because it's been just so exciting to see how you've developed over the years as well, to come into your power so that you can help other people as well. And what is it, lastly, what is it about your life and your vocation that you do right now that you love the most?
There is absolutely nothing more fulfilling to me than hearing a woman as she brings her baby up to her chest say, I did it. Did you see that? I did it, And sometimes it comes like, did you see that? Does everybody see that? Or sometimes it's like, oh my God, I did it. And I just like, yeah. And it's that moment, and sometimes that comes after being with someone in a birth for 30 hours or, for whatever that time is. But I feel like when women have that moment, my work is done. And there's no greater feeling. I would do it for free. Because I feel like, I've had purpose and impact, and I've given her the opportunity to find the true essence of who she really is. Yeah.
That is absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
I can hear your puggies. Where are you?
Where are we? I've locked them out.
This is your tea, by the way. This is your polka dot tea. Oh, so nice.
Going polka dot. Oh, did your mum send that to you?
No, she bought me the licorice one.
She bought you the licorice.
Still have batches, and I've still all your tea.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this and sharing your story and telling everyone what you do. And it's this is what we're hoping to do at the Spiritual Co-op, is actually inspire people to be their best, to be their authentic self. And yeah, so thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being here and taking the time out in your busy schedule to do this interview with me.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. I love you so much.
I love you too. I love you too. So for those of you who are interested in, getting a doula or getting in contact with Danae, you can get her through her Facebook page. Is there a website as well?
Yeah, so I do have a website, www.danaebirthdoula.com.au, and that's spelled Danae. Or you can find me on Facebook with just at Danae Birth Doula, and that should help you find me. I'm quite an easy name to find.
Wonderful. So
Yeah.
when we actually post this live, because this has been pre-recorded, I'll put all the links down there so that people can find you, and they can always talk to you about the options, their birthing options.
Yeah, there's so many different options, that allow you to, doulas can be used in so many different ways, whether it's just in terms of your birth education or what kind of preparation that you're looking for, all the way through to having the support for you and your partner during birth, or whether you're birthing without a partner or with a partner. We certainly don't take away from that experience of bonding with your partner. What I find, honestly, more so is that it helps your partner engage more with you when in more moments of stress, rather than pulling away because they don't actually know how to then interact with the birth. So, as a lot of the work that we do as doulas, as well as to empower, the partner or the father to be able to interact in your birth with more confidence. So I don't think I've ever had a client that said he took away from the bonding experience that I had with my partner. So, yeah.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much, and thank you for listening, everyone. So from our heart to yours, take care of yourself and the people around you, and we will see you very soon. Alrighty?
Bye.
Bye.